Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on solving square equations. Content objective is students will be able to solve square equations, basically radical equations. Language objective is students will be able to explain verbally how to solve radical equations. Why am I learning this? Well, it's important for real-world problems like finding the side of a cube if you know the surface area. So first, the question is, the area of the square below is 289 square feet. What is the length of a side of the square? First of all, we need to understand what a square is. Well, a square is basically a four-sided shape where all of the sides have the same length. So since we don't know any of the lengths, we're going to go ahead and give it a variable. I'm going to call it x. So right now, x is representing the length of one side of a square. Now, from that, we can go ahead and determine we do know the area. How do you normally find the area of a square? Well, you say base times height. So x times x equals 289. X times x is basically x squared. So x squared equals 289. So what can you multiply by itself to give you 289? The answer is, well, first, what you could do is take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is just x. And then from there, if I take the square root of 289, I'm going to go ahead and say that the answer is 17. How do I know this? Because 17 times 17, if you multiply them together, or in other words, square it, you will see that it does equal 289. So what this means is the length of each side of the square is 17. Since it's measured in feet, I would say feet. So I would say the length of a side, let's say that of a side of the square is 17 feet. And then that would be your answer. Okay, so on this note, what I'm going to actually have you do is go ahead and try number 2 on your own. Okay, so let's see how well we did. For number 2, again, it says the area of the square below is 169 square feet. What is the length of a side of the square? So we do know the area is 169 feet squared. We don't know the sides, so we're going to go ahead and just assign it a variable. I chose x. You might have chosen something totally different. It's okay. Here we know we find the area by multiplying base times height, which is essentially x squared. We do know it equals 169. So what we could do to both sides is take the square root, and the square root of x squared is just x, and square root of 169 is 13. So because this one's measured in feet, you can go ahead and say that the length of a side of this square is 13 feet. So hopefully you got that answer right. Okay, so now, whenever we solve equations, we're trying to find the value of the variable to create a true statement. Keep that in mind. The instruction says solve the following equation. So kind of like in the previous one, we're trying to figure out what number could I multiply by itself to give me 225. Well, the only number that will work that if you multiply by itself is 15. But let's think. Remember, we're looking for a value to create a true statement. Is 15 the only one that will make a true statement? The answer is no. A negative 15 would work as well. So remember, what we did before is we took the square root of both sides. Okay, but here, we're going to next time remember to take the square root of a positive 225 and a negative 225. So real quick, let me show you that it does work. If I take this number and square it, it should give me 225. So if I put 15 squared, it equals 225, and negative 15, because the negative times the negative is also a positive 225. It's a good idea for you to make sure you check your work to see if it does, like we've done in the past with equations. Okay. So this is one way to express your answer. You can go ahead and say x equals plus or minus. That's how you would read this notation here. 15, it's a quick and easy way of condensing your answer. However, if you were to type it into my open math, you would be asked to write both numbers out using a comma to separate. So you could have written 15 comma negative 15 would be one way, or vice versa, 15 comma 15. Negative 15 comma 15 would work as well. So just understand on my open math that you will be expected to write it like that and not like this. So on that note, go ahead and try numbers 3, 4, and 5 on your own. So let's see how well we did. For number 3, we took the square root of both sides. And here, remember, you're going to take the square root of a positive and a negative, so you would get a positive and negative 4. Now, if you were to check your work, you would see, okay, 4 squared equals 16. That one definitely works. What about a negative 4 squared? Does that equal 16? Yes, that also equals 16. So it does work for both. So I'm confident that my answer is positive 4 comma negative 4, which again, you can also write like that or vice versa. Number 4, again, you're going to take the square root of both sides, leaving you with plus or minus 5, because if you take this positive square root and the negative square root, you'll have both. Again, to prove my point, I would check it. Okay, I'm going to first check a positive 5. 5 squared, does that equal 25? Yes, it does. And what about a negative 5? Does that also equal 25? Yes, that does. Negative 5 times a negative 5 does also equal positive 25. And last one here, w squared equals negative 9. Take the square root of both sides. Here, is there a number that can multiply by itself to give me a negative 9? The answer is no, at least not for now. So we're going to go ahead and say there's no solution. So hopefully you didn't fall for it. There's not a really good way to check your answer for this one. However, before you claim your answer is no solution, please be 100% sure, because again, you won't be able to check it. Okay, so now moving on to something just a little bit more difficult. What if we had something like this? X squared plus 15 equals 211. Our goal is to get x by itself. So ideally, we're going to try to, for now, isolate the x squared. So first thing to get rid of would be your constant, subtracting it from both sides, which leaves me with x squared equals 196. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the square root of both sides, because basically that's your inverse operation of squaring a number. So you're going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to be left with x squared equals the positive and negative 196. So the positive answer would, of course, be, let's see, 14. And the negative square root of 196 would be a negative 14. So my answer is going to be positive and negative 14. Again, you can still write it like this. Okay, that's basically what it means, positive and negative 14. Of course, I'm going to have to check my work. So here I'm going to do 14 squared plus 15 equals 211. Here, 14 squared is 196 plus 15. Does this equal 211? Let's check this out. Yes, it does. Okay, so we know that 211 equals 211, so that definitely works out. What about a negative 14 squared plus 15 equals 211? Again, it's 196 plus 15. Does that equal 211? Let's see. Yes, it does. So again, please make sure you're checking your work to confirm that it does work. Now let's try another one. Now this one, okay, very similar, but again, what we're going to want to do is, at first, our goal is to get x by itself, but for right now, let's just try to isolate the x squared. So I'm going to have to get rid of the 3. This does mean 3 times x squared, so the inverse would be to divide both sides by 3. You'll see that 3's cancel out here, and then you're going to divide. So I'm going to do 432 divided by 3 goes in once. This goes in 4 times. And this is going to go 4 times. So I'm going to be left with x squared equals 144. We are going to take the square root of both sides, which means x could be 2 things. It could be the positive square root of the positive 144 and the negative square root of 144, which means x is going to equal positive and negative 12. But as always, let's check our work to confirm. 3 times positive 12 squared equals 432. 3 times 144, does this equal 432? Let's check it out. This equals 12, 13, 4. So it does check out. 432 does equal 432. And then the next one, you're going to test out a negative 12. This one shouldn't be too hard because should be the same. 3 times 144 equals 432. And again, you will see 432 equals 432. Okay, I have a couple more to try with you. What about this one? So again, we're going to try to isolate w, but for now, getting at least w squared by itself is going to be our best bet. So first we're going to have to get rid of this 4. This means w squared divided by 4. So the inverse would be to multiply both sides by 4. The 4's will cancel out. I'm going to have to multiply 64 times 4. It's going to be 16, carry the 1, 256. So I have w squared equals 256. Now what I'm going to have to do is take the square root of both sides. And I'm going to get w equals the positive square root of 246 and the negative square root of 246, which is going to give me w equals 16. Now, as always, let's go ahead and check our work. We're going to have 16 squared over 4 equals 64. Let's see. It's 256 divided by 4. Does this equal 64? Let's check it out. Does not go into 2, but goes in 25 6 times. 4 goes into 16 nicely 4 times. So here I would say it does work. And ideally, a negative 16 is basically the same thing because a positive times positive is a negative times a negative is a positive. So you should end up with the same answer. Now, do you really have to check both? In all honesty, not really when something is being squared, but you should be checking when something gets cubed because it does matter. But to play it safe, it's always a good thing to check both. So now we've seen the one where there's a coefficient, okay, and we've seen one where there's a constant. Now I'm kind of blending them together. What do you want to do first? Well, as always, we would always get rid of the constant first, so let's get rid of the 18. Leaving you with 2x squared equals 32, and then we get rid of the coefficient, so it means 2 times x squared, so the inverse would be to divide both sides by 2, leaving you with x squared equals 16. Now the inverse of squaring a number would be to take the square root, so here we do have to take the square root of a positive 16 and a negative 16, so that's going to give us x equals plus or minus 4. But as always, let's just check our work. Whoops. So we have 2 times x, which is a positive 4 squared plus 18 equals 50. Here we need to square the number first, so that's 16. So 2 times 16 plus 18 equals 50. Here we have 32 plus 18 equals 50. This is true, so it works. Now again, let's try the second one. Negative 4 squared plus 18 equals 50. We have 2 times negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. And again, it's the same old thing, but it's good practice. And we're going to get 50 equals 50, so it does work out. Okay, last one here. As always, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the constant first. Let's get rid of the minus 17 by adding 17 to both sides, leaving me with x squared over 3 equals 27. Now here, we're going to get rid of the coefficient, so it's x squared divided by 3. So the inverse would be to multiply both sides by 3. You'll see the 3's here cancel each other out. Here, I'm going to get 27 times 3, it's 21, carry, 6 plus 2 is 8, so I have x squared equals 81. I'm going to have to divide both, not divide, sorry. The inverse of x squared, in this case, is going to be to take the square root of both sides. That's going to leave me with x equals the positive square root of 81 and a negative square root of 81, which means x equals plus or minus 9. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and check out the work. Here we have x squared, so it's going to be 9 squared over 3 minus 17 equals 10. 9 squared is 81, so 81 divided by 3 minus 17 equals 10. 81 divided by 3, let's check that out. It's going to go twice, leaving me with 21, so that's going to go in 7 times evenly. So I'm going to get 27 minus 17 equals 10. Does 10 equal 10? Absolutely. And then I'm just going to go ahead and show you that a negative 9 will work too. Here, again, we have a positive 81 divided by 3 minus 17 equals 10. Then we're going to have 27 minus 17 equals 10, which does leave me with 10 equal 10. So they definitely check out. Okay, so now what I would like you to do is go ahead and pause the video and try numbers 11 through 14 on your own. Okay, let's check out our answers. Number 11, the answer is C equals plus or minus 5. Again, this basically is the same thing as saying it's a positive and a negative 5. Number 12 is no solution. Okay, you ended up taking the square root of a negative number, which for now, we're going to say it's no solution. Number 13, the answer is plus or minus 16. And number 14 is n equals plus or minus 6. Okay, so now moving on to another type. So it says here, the volume of the cylinder below is 324 pi cubic meters, and the height is 9 meters. What is the length of the radius of the cylinder? So what you're going to want to do first is use what we know, kind of like in our very, very first example. We do know that the total volume is 324, and we do know the formula. Okay, the formula is V equals pi r squared. So now I'm going to go ahead and piece it together. I'm going to go ahead and say, well, first of all, I don't know what r is, so that's going to stay as r. But I do know the height equals 9, and I do know that the total volume is 324 pi. So I'm going to piece those things together into my equation. The volume is going to be replaced with 324 pi. Pi is going to stay the same. Radius is going to stay the same since I don't know it. And then height is going to be replaced with 9. Okay, just making these a little bit neater. So now what we're going to do is we're going to solve for the radius. So first thing that I want to get rid of is 9 and pi. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and divide both sides by 9 and pi. But here, just want to show you that it's, for some of you, it might be better to do it step by step, but just so that you know you could do both at the same time. We're going to cancel out pi, leaving me with 324 equals 9 pi r. Oops, 9r squared. So we're just going to go ahead and divide both sides by 9, which is going to leave me with 36 equals r squared. So just like in the previous examples, since it is squared, the inverse would be to take the square root of both sides. And you're going to be left with positive and negative 6 technically. But why did I not include a negative 6? Because when we're talking about length, we never describe length as being negative. And that's why I excluded negative 6. Even though negative 6 would still create a true statement, it wouldn't make much sense in this particular example. So I'm going to say the radius is 6 meters. Okay. So now what I'd like you to do is go ahead and try number 16 on your own. Okay, so here first you're going to identify the fact that we do know that the total volume of this cylinder is 128 pi, and we know the height is 8. So when we need to first write down the formula for the volume of a cylinder, which is the area of a circle, so pi r squared, times the height. So here, volume is going to be replaced with 128 pi equals pi r squared. Notice I left r alone because I don't know it. And then height is 8. So here, just to show you that you could do both at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 8 pi. Pi is going to go away, and so will 8. Then I'll put 8 pi here. Pi's are going to go away, so I'm just left with 128 divided by 8, which goes in about 16 times, so 16 equals r squared. You're going to take the square root of both sides, and I'm left with technically plus or minus the square root of 16, which is plus or minus 4. But again, why am I excluding negative 4? Because you would never describe a length as being negative. So here I would say that my final answer is that the radius is going to be 4 meters. Please don't forget to include your units. That's going to be a very common mistake that students make. Okay, so now moving on to the next shape, which is going to be the cone. So we're going to do the same exact thing just as before. It says the volume of the cone below is 98 pi cubic feet. What is the length of the radius of the cone? So here they're looking for the radius, which is r. So we're going to first going to state what the total volume is, which is 98 pi. And we do know here 6 feet, that's my height. So now what we're going to need is the volume for a cone, which is 1/3 pi r squared times height. So again, pi r squared is the area of the base, which in this case is a circle, times height. And then you're taking 1/3 of that. So now we're going to go ahead and fill in the information. We know that 98 is the total volume. So I'm going to put 98 pi equals 1/3 pi r squared is going to stay the same, but h is going to be replaced with a 6. So it's going to look like that. I'm just going to make things a little bit neater. And there we have it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little extra work to make things a little bit neater. I can go ahead and cross cancel the right hand side of the equation because 6 and 3 both have a 3 in common. So we're going to go ahead and reduce this to 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 becomes a 2. So now basically on the right hand side I'm left with 2 pi r squared. So let me make that a little bit neater. Okay, so now what we can do is get rid of 2 and pi at the same time. So I'm going to put 2 pi, 2's cancels out, pi's cancels out, and I'm just going to divide by 2 pi here. The pi's are going to cancel out, leaving me with 98 over 2. That's going to give me, let's see, let me work it out off to the side. That goes in 4 times, and that goes in 9 times evenly. So now I have 49 equals, all I'm left with on this side is r squared. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides, leaving me with plus or minus the square root of 49 for r. So this does include a positive and negative 7. But yet again, there's no such thing as a negative distance for, in this case, the radius. So I will exclude the negative 7 and just say that the radius of this cone is 7 feet. Okay, again, units are very important. Okay, so now go ahead and pause the video and try number 18 by yourself. Okay, so hopefully you use the formula for the volume of a cone, which is V equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. In this case, the height is 9, and we know the volume is 75 pi. So hopefully you set it up as 75 pi equals 1/3 pi r squared times 9. Then you recognize you can go ahead and cross cancel. You can divide both 9 and 3 by 3. So 9 divided by 3 becomes 3. 3 divided by 3 becomes 1, leaving you with 75 pi equals pi r squared times 3. Here I'm just going to show you, some people may prefer to do it one step at a time. First getting rid of pi, leaving you with this. And to be completely honest, I would start writing the 3 in front because that's where coefficients normally belong. But it really doesn't matter. You're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3 at this point, leaving you with 25 equals r squared. Then simply take the square root of both sides, and r equals 5 feet. Again, technically, the square root of 25 is positive and negative 5, but negative 5 feet does not make sense for the radius of a cone. So that's why we exclude it and just said that it's 5 feet. So that's actually going to conclude the lesson for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, until next time, bye.